By autumn 1965, the Vietnam War was entering a new and deadlier phase. In March, the first US combat troops, 3,500 Marines, had landed at Da Nang. President Lyndon Johnson, determined to prevent communist takeover of South Vietnam, steadily increased American commitment. By November, 184,000 US troops were in country. The North Vietnamese responded in kind. General Von Nguyen Giap, the victor of Dien Bien Phu, sent entire regiments of the People's Army of Vietnam, the NVA, down the Ho Chi Minh Trail into South Vietnam's Central Highlands. His strategy: cut South Vietnam in half, drive to the coast, collapse the government. The stage was set for the first major battle between American forces and North Vietnamese regulars, a test of doctrine, tactics, firepower. The outcome would shape the entire war. The build-up in the highlands, the Central Highlands of South Vietnam, a rugged landscape of mountains, jungle and elephant grass near the Cambodian border. The region is strategic. Control of the highlands means control of the routes to the coast and the ability to cut South Vietnam in two. In October 1965, US intelligence detects 3 full-strength NVA regiments moving into Pleiku province. The 32nd, 33rd and 66th regiments of the North Vietnamese Army's B3 front. Approximately 6,000 troops, well-trained, well-equipped. Experienced soldiers, many of whom fought the French. Their mission: attack the US Special Forces camp at Plei My, draw in ARVN relief forces, ambush and destroy them, then assault the provincial capital at Pleiku. October 19th. The siege of Plei My begins. NVA forces surround the camp. Heavy fighting erupts. The camp holds but barely. The communists wait for the relief column. October the 23rd. ARVN forces, supported by US helicopters and advisors, fight their way through multiple ambushes to relieve the camp. The NVA plan partially fails. They withdraw west toward the Chupong Massif and the Cambodian border. US commanders see opportunity. The enemy is concentrated, visible, vulnerable to American firepower. Major General Harry Kinnard, commander of the 1st Cavalry Division, Airmobile, gets the mission: find the enemy, fix them, destroy them. The 1st Cav is a new type of unit. Helicopters replace trucks and armoured vehicles. 435 UH-1 Huey helicopters, heavy Chinooks, armed gunships. The division can move entire battalions by air, land them anywhere, support them with unprecedented firepower. This will be the first test of airmobile doctrine against a conventional enemy force. Either it works or it fails catastrophically. Operation Silver Bayonet, November 3rd, 1965. Operation Silver Bayonet begins. The 1st Cav launches search and destroy operations west of Plei My, sweeping toward the Ia Drang River Valley and the Chupong Massif. The Chupong, a mountainous complex rising over 2,000 feet, extends into Cambodia. NVA base camps sit just across the border, unreachable due to political restrictions on cross-border operations. For 10 days, US forces search the jungle. Contacts are light, scattered skirmishes. The NVA seem to have vanished. 3rd Brigade, 1st Cavalry Division, commanded by Colonel Thomas Brown, continues the sweep. Brown gives Lieutenant Colonel Harold G. Moore, commander of 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry, a specific mission: search the Ia Drang Valley at the base of Chupong. Intelligence suggests NVA forces are using this area as a staging base. Moore's battalion, 17 Cav, consists of 450 men in 4 rifle companies: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. His call sign: Gary Owen, after the regiment's traditional Irish quickstep. This is the same regiment, the 7th Cavalry, that George Armstrong Custer led to destruction at Little Bighorn in 1876. The historical parallel is not lost on anyone. November 13th. Moore conducts aerial reconnaissance over the Ia Drang Valley. He identifies a clearing at the base of Chupong suitable for helicopter landing. The area is designated Landing Zone X-Ray. X-Ray sits in a clearing roughly the size of a football field, surrounded by thick jungle and tall elephant grass. The Chupong Massif rises immediately to the west. Unknown to Moore, 3 NVA regiments, the 32nd, 33rd and 66th, totaling nearly 2,000 troops, are camped on the Chupong within easy striking distance of X-Ray. The NVA have been watching American helicopter operations. They are preparing a response. November 14th. The landing 0600 hours, November 14, 1965. Moore's battalion assembles at Landing Zone Falcon, the forward staging base, 16 UH-1. Huey helicopters, the lift capacity, will carry the troops in waves to X-ray. Each helicopter carries 8 to 10 men. This means it will take multiple trips to get the entire battalion on the ground, the most vulnerable moment of any air assault. The first wave lands with limited forces while more troops are still inbound. If the landing zone is hot, the initial troops can be overwhelmed before reinforcements arrive. Moore briefs his commanders. Alpha Company, led by Captain Ramon Nadal, goes in first. Establish security around the LZ. Bravo Company, Captain John Heron, follows. Then Charlie Company, Captain Robert Edwards. Delta Company, Captain Louis Lefebvre, remains at Falcon in reserve. Moore will go in with the first lift. Commanders lead from the front. 10:40 hours. The first wave of 16 Hueys crosses the Ia Drang River, heading toward X-ray. Door gunners scan the jungle below. The pilots descend toward the clearing. No ground fire. The landing appears cold. 10:48 hours. The helicopters touch down. Moore and Alpha Company leap out. The Hueys lift off immediately to return for the next wave. 80 men are on the ground. Moore directs Captain Nadal to send patrols into the surrounding jungle to establish a defensive perimeter. 2nd Platoon, led by 2nd Lieutenant Alan Devney, moves north toward the mountain. 3rd Platoon, under 2nd Lieutenant Walter Malm, pushes northwest. 1st Platoon, commanded by 2nd Lieutenant Henry Herrick, advances northeast along the base of Chupong. The perimeter expands, still no contact. Minutes pass, the second wave lands, Bravo Company arrives, the battalion strength grows, 11:20 hours. 1st Platoon, Alpha Company, advancing through thick brush, stumbles into an NVA scout team. Automatic weapons fire erupts. The lead American squad goes down, several men hit immediately. Lieutenant Herrick radios, contact. Enemy troops ahead. Heavy fire. Within minutes the situation explodes. NVA soldiers pour out of the jungle. 1st Platoon is suddenly engaged by what appears to be an entire company. Perhaps more. Herrick's men fight back desperately but are being pushed into a cluster of trees on the lower slope of Chupong. They are cut off from the rest of Alpha Company. Moore realizes immediately what is happening. This is not a patrol that stumbled into Americans. This is a planned response. The NVA knew the helicopters were coming. They watched the landing. Now they are attacking in force to overrun X-ray before the entire battalion can assemble. Moore orders his companies to form a tight defensive perimeter around the landing zone. Artillery fire support is called in, aerial rocket artillery, ARA helicopters, gunships race toward X-ray. The Battle of Ia Drang has begun. The storm breaks. By noon, the situation at X-ray is critical. 1st Platoon, Alpha Company, 27 men, is surrounded 500 meters from the main perimeter. NVA forces estimated at 200 to 300 troops are attacking Herrick's position, trying to wipe it out. Meanwhile, the main perimeter at X-ray comes under heavy assault from multiple directions. NVA soldiers, using the cover of jungle and elephant grass, advance in squad and platoon-sized elements. They get within meters of American positions before opening fire. Grenades explode, automatic weapons chatter. Moore has approximately 250 men on the ground. More are arriving with each helicopter wave, but the NVA are trying to destroy the landing zone to prevent reinforcements from getting in. Enemy machine gun fire rakes the clearing. Mortar rounds impact near the landing point. Despite the fire, the Hueys keep coming. Pilots fly through the barrage, land, drop troops, take off. Some helicopters are hit. One goes down. The crew is rescued. Door gunners fire continuously, suppressing enemy positions. Artillery from Landing Zone Falcon, 8 kilometers away, begins pounding the jungle around X-ray. 105mm howitzers fire mission after mission. High explosive rounds crash into the tree line where NVA are massing. The guns fire danger close, shells impacting within 100 meters of American positions. 12:30 hours. The situation grows desperate. Bravo Company, defending the southern sector of the perimeter, is hit by a massive assault. NVA troops charge in human waves. Captain Heron's men hold the line, but casualties mount. The enemy gets within hand grenade range. Fighting is face to face. 2nd Platoon, Bravo Company, is nearly overrun. Platoon Sergeant George Gonzalez sees NVA soldiers breaking through. He grabs an M60 machine gun, stands in the open, fires into the attackers at point-blank range. He's hit multiple times but keeps firing until he collapses, dead. His action stops the breakthrough. Artillery increases. Fire support bases hammer the jungle. Forward air controllers, FACs, flying overhead, direct airstrikes, a 1E Sky Raiders, F-100 Super Sabres, F-4 Phantoms scream in, dropping napalm, high explosive bombs, firing rockets. The jungle erupts in flame, yet the NVA keep coming. They are willing to take enormous casualties to destroy the Americans before they can consolidate. This is not guerrilla warfare. This is conventional combat, regiment against battalion. Herrick's last stand. At the cut-off position, 1st Platoon, Alpha Company, fights for survival. Lieutenant Herrick's 27 men are surrounded on 3 sides, their backs against the mountain slope. NVA troops attack repeatedly, trying to finish them off. Herrick is hit in the hip, seriously wounded. Sergeant Clyde Savage takes command. The platoon forms a tight defensive circle. Ammunition runs low, casualties pile up. Dead and wounded lie together in a small perimeter no larger than 30 meters across. Moore desperately wants to reach them but cannot. Every attempt to fight through results in more casualties. The NVA force between the cut-off platoon and the main perimeter is too strong. Reinforcements from Bravo Company try to advance but are stopped by withering fire. By mid-afternoon, of 27 men in Herrick's platoon, 8 are dead, 12 wounded. Only 7 remain combat effective. They hold on, hoping for relief. Artillery fire is adjusted to land as close to their position as possible without hitting them. Rounds impact 50 meters away, suppressing NVA attackers. Airstrikes come in. Napalm canisters tumble through the sky, exploding in walls of flame that incinerate everything in a 100-meter radius. The heat is so intense, even Americans 500 meters away feel it. Still, Herrick's platoon cannot be reached. 1,500 hours. More NVA troops join the battle. The 33rd Regiment, fresh from Cambodia, enters the fight. Moore's perimeter is now facing 2 full NVA regiments, possibly 3,000 troops against his 450. The only advantage? American firepower. Artillery batteries fire continuously. Ammunition expenditure is staggering. Helicopters resupply the guns as fast as they shoot. The tubes glow red hot. Crews pour water on them to prevent warping. Airstrikes intensify. Every available aircraft in South Vietnam is diverted to X-ray. Tactical fighters, medium bombers, attack helicopters pound the jungle. The noise is deafening. Explosions overlap continuously. Black smoke rises thousands of feet. Night falls. 1,700 hours. Sunset approaches. The most dangerous time. Fighting at night favors the NVA. They are trained for it. They own the darkness. American forces depend on artillery and air support, both degraded in darkness. Moore knows if the NVA launch a major night assault, X-ray could be overrun. Delta Company, the reserve, arrives by helicopter just before dusk. Captain Lefebvre's men strengthen the perimeter. Moore now has his full battalion on the ground, minus the casualties. Approximately 350 combat-effective troops. Herrick's cut-off platoon continues to hold. Sergeant Savage keeps his men together. They whisper. No movement. No light. NVA soldiers are close enough to hear. The Americans lie among their dead and wounded, silent, waiting for dawn. Moore orders his perimeter tightened into a defensive circle. Every man digs in. Machine guns are positioned to create interlocking fields of fire. Claymore mines are emplaced facing the jungle. Artillery coordinates defensive fires, pre-planned barrages that can be called in instantly if the NVA attack. He requests flare missions. Throughout the night, artillery fires illumination rounds. Parachute flares drift slowly down, bathing the battlefield in harsh white light that creates dancing shadows. Each flare lasts 3 to 5 minutes. New ones are fired before the old ones burn out. The night never goes completely dark. 18-30 hours. Full darkness. The NVA probe the perimeter. Small groups creep forward, testing American defenses, looking for weak points. They are met with rifle fire, machine gun bursts, grenades. Bodies pile up in the elephant grass. 2,200 hours. The main assault comes. NVA forces attack from the west and southwest in company strength. Bugles sound, whistles blow. Hundreds of soldiers charge through the darkness toward American positions. The defensive fires are devastating. Claymore mines detonate, scything down entire squads with steel balls. M60 machine guns fire long bursts, tracers arcing into the jungle, riflemen shoot at muzzle flashes, artillery shells explode across the killing zone. The noise is apocalyptic. The attack is broken up before reaching the foxholes. NVA bodies litter the ground. But more come. A second wave, a third. The communists are determined to break through. They accept casualties that would shatter any Western force. American ammunition expenditure is massive. Machine gunners burn through belt after belt. Riflemen fire magazines as fast as they can reload. Moore calls for emergency resupply. Helicopters brave ground fire to drop ammunition containers onto the LZ. Troops run out, grab the containers, haul them back to fighting positions. Midnight. The assaults continue, but with less intensity. The NVA are exhausted. They have lost hundreds of men against the perimeter. American firepower, particularly artillery firing danger close missions, has broken every attack. Bodies surround the perimeter, some within 10 meters of the foxholes. At Herrick's position, the NVA make one final attempt to annihilate the cut-off platoon. Sergeant Savage and his remaining men fight them off. One American is killed, several more wounded. They are out of water, out of food, nearly out of ammunition, but they hold. Dawn, November 15th, 0600 hours. First light. The battlefield is visible. Smoke drifts across X-ray. The smell of cordite, burning jungle, death hangs in the air. Bodies, mostly NVA, are scattered everywhere. Moore immediately orders Alpha Company to break through to Herrick's platoon. This time, with more troops and in daylight, they succeed. Captain Nadal's men fight through light resistance and reach the position at 0900 hours. Of the original 27 men, 9 are dead, 13 wounded. 5 walked out unhurt, but all are in shock. They held for 22 hours surrounded by an NVA battalion. The relief of Herrick's platoon does not end the battle. NVA forces continue to hold positions around X-ray. Moore's battalion has been reinforced. 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Robert McDade, and 2 companies from 2nd Battalion, 5th Cavalry, arrive by helicopter. American strength at X-ray now exceeds 900 men. The battle shifts. With overwhelming firepower, the Americans go on the offensive. Companies sweep out from the perimeter, pushing NVA forces back toward Chupong. Airstrikes increase. B-52 bombers flying from Guam deliver arc-light missions, each aircraft dropping 27,000 kilograms of bombs across enemy positions on the mountain slopes. The destruction is immense. Trees are uprooted, craters 10 meters across pock the landscape. Entire NVA companies cease to exist, buried in collapsed bunkers or shredded by blast waves. By mid-afternoon, November 15th, NVA resistance around X-ray collapses. Enemy forces withdraw toward Cambodia. The battlefield belongs to the Americans. November 16th. Moore's battalion is ordered to move to Landing Zone Columbus for extraction. 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry, will remain to secure X-ray. The 1st Cav has won the battle. Final tally at X-ray, US forces 79 killed, 121 wounded. NVA forces estimated at 634 killed by body count, with total casualties likely over 1,000. The Americans held the landing zone, inflicted far heavier casualties, proved that helicopter air assault tactics combined with massive firepower could defeat NVA regulars in conventional combat. It seemed like victory, but the battle was not over. LZ Albany. The ambush, November 17, 1965. Lieutenant Colonel Robert McDade's 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry, receives orders to march overland from X-ray to Landing Zone Albany, 2.5 kilometers to the north. Albany will be their extraction point. McDade's battalion, 450 men, forms a column and begins moving through the jungle. The march is slow, difficult, thick vegetation, elephant grass higher than a man's head. Visibility is limited to a few meters. The battalion moves in standard formation. Alpha Company leads. Recon Platoon provides forward security. Charlie Company follows Alpha. Delta Company is next. Bravo Company at the rear. Headquarters elements in the middle. Unknown to McDade, the NVA 8th Battalion, 66th Regiment, approximately 250 troops, is paralleling the American column. The NVA commander watches, waits for the perfect moment. He wants the Americans in the worst possible position. 1,300 hours. The lead elements of McDade's battalion reach LZ Albany. Alpha Company and the Recon Platoon begin securing the landing zone. The main body of the battalion is strung out in a long column through the jungle, spread over several hundred meters. Companies are intermixed. Command and control is difficult. This is the moment. 13-15 hours, the NVA spring the ambush. At a signal, 250 NVA soldiers rise from concealed positions and attack directly into the middle of the American column at point-blank range. Soldiers on both sides are within arm's reach. The jungle erupts in gunfire. The ambush is devastating. Americans and NVA are mixed together in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Rifle fire at 5-meter range, grenades thrown into groups of men, bayonets, entrenching tools used as weapons, chaos. The column disintegrates. Small groups of Americans form defensive clusters but are separated from each other. Communications break down, radios are lost, officers are killed in the first minutes, platoons are leaderless, companies cannot coordinate. Charlie Company, in the center of the column, takes the worst of it. Captain Henry Tucker is killed almost immediately. The company executive officer is killed. All platoon leaders are killed or wounded within minutes. Charlie Company ceases to exist as a coherent unit. NVA soldiers move through the tall grass, hunting isolated Americans. They fire AK-47s on full automatic into groups huddled behind fallen logs. Rocket-propelled grenades explode among the wounded. The killing is systematic. Survivors remember the sound, screaming, shooting, explosions, all overlapping into continuous noise, the smell of blood and gunpowder, the elephant grass so thick you cannot see the man next to you being shot. Some American units maintain cohesion. Sergeant First Class Robert Jemison gathers survivors from Charlie Company, organizes defensive position. Captain Joel Sugdenis, Delta Company commander, holds his unit together, keeps them fighting. Small groups of men, sergeants and lieutenants create pockets of resistance. But for 2 hours, LZ Albany is hell. NVA forces control most of the battlefield. They systematically attack American positions one by one. Artillery cannot help. The two forces are so intermingled that fire support would kill Americans. Airstrikes are ineffective for the same reason. The advantage of American firepower is neutralized by the close quarters fighting. Only small arms, grenades, desperation. 1,500 hours. Alpha Company, which reached the landing zone before the ambush, organizes a relief effort. Captain Joel Sugdenis, leading what is left of Delta Company, fights toward the ambush site. They meet fierce resistance. Progress is measured in meters. At landing zone Columbus, units of the 1st Cavalry learn of the disaster at Albany. Helicopters are scrambled. 1st Battalion, 5th Cavalry is airlifted into Albany to reinforce. They land under fire. The LZ is still contested. By 1700 hours, American reinforcements finally stabilize the situation. The NVA, having taken significant casualties themselves and facing fresh US troops, begin withdrawing. They melt back into the jungle, leaving the battlefield. Night falls. American forces establish a defensive perimeter. Medics work through the darkness treating wounded. The count is grim. November 18th. Dawn reveals the full horror. Bodies everywhere. Americans and NVA mixed together. The elephant grass is trampled, soaked with blood. Equipment is scattered. Weapons lie abandoned. Final casualties for 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry at LZ Albany. 155 killed, 124 wounded, over half the battalion. Some companies are nearly wiped out. Charlie Company, 42 killed out of 90 men. NVA casualties, estimated 403 killed by body count. LZ Albany is the deadliest single action for US forces in the entire Ia Drang campaign, a near disaster. Only the courage of small unit leaders and the arrival of reinforcements prevented complete annihilation. The aftermath November the 20th. Operation Silver Bayonet officially ends. The 1st Cavalry Division returns to base at Nkei. The Battle of Ia Drang is over. Both sides claim victory. Each is partially right. The Americans achieved their objectives. They found the enemy, fixed them in place, destroyed them with superior firepower. At LZX Ray, Moore's battalion defeated 2 NVA regiments, inflicted massive casualties, held the battlefield. The airmobile concept worked. Helicopter assaults, rapid reinforcement, overwhelming fire support proved effective against conventional NVA forces, but LZ Albany exposed the dangers. When NVA forces got inside the American firepower advantage, closed to hand-to-hand range, the result was catastrophic. The ambush demonstrated that US forces, while superior in firepower, were vulnerable to close-quarters attacks that neutralized that advantage. Total US casualties for the Ia Drang campaign: 305 killed, 524 wounded. Total NVA casualties estimated at 3,553, though this number is disputed. Body counts were often exaggerated, true losses may be lower. The kill ratio favored the Americans, roughly 10-1. General Westmoreland and US commanders saw this as proof their strategy of attrition would work. Kill enough enemy troops and eventually North Vietnam would run out of men and quit. This assessment was wrong. General Giap drew different lessons. The NVA could stand and fight Americans in conventional battle. They could inflict significant casualties. Most importantly, American political will to sustain losses was limited. Time favored the communists. They could replace casualties. They would accept losses the Americans would not. Ia Drang set the pattern for the rest of the war. Large US operations, high enemy casualties, inconclusive results. The Americans would win most battles tactically, but never achieve strategic victory. The war became a grinding stalemate measured in body counts. For the individual soldiers, Ia Drang was both victory and trauma. They had faced a determined enemy and prevailed through courage and firepower, but they had also seen friends die in elephant grass, heard screams in the darkness, counted costs that would haunt them forever. Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore and war correspondent Joe Galloway, who was at X-Ray throughout the battle, later co-wrote We Were Soldiers Once and Young, the definitive account of Ia Drang. The book captures the heroism, horror and complexity of the first major battle between American and North Vietnamese forces. The battle proved helicopters and firepower worked. It proved American soldiers could fight and win against NVA regulars. It proved that victory in Vietnam would be neither easy nor cheap. What began on November 14, 1965, in a clearing at the base of the Chupong Massif, ended with both sides more determined to continue the war. The Americans because they believed they could win through superior firepower and technology. The North Vietnamese because they believed they could outlast American will to fight. Both were right, both were wrong, and the war would continue for 10 more years.